Hello, welcome to the Explains Lounge. This is our recruitment panel. We're talking about the really big topic of bringing more young people into our business, but also maybe people that are already in other trades or a bit older, and also to come into, encourage people into our business and also encourage them to stay there. I've got a great panel here. Shall we introduce ourselves? Linda, can we start with you?
Thank you, Jack. So, good morning. My name is Linda Edwards, and I am the Managing Director of the British Sign and Graphics Association.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I represent Young People in Print, which is an initiative to try and drive print as a career choice into the careers and education side.
Good morning, my name's Matt Hanley. I'm the Managing Director of M2, which is a recruitment agency specific to the print, packaging and signage industry.
And I'm Craig Brown, and I'm part of the BSGA and former MD of Signs Express.
Here for your sort of real world employer experience. I think that's right. Drafted.
Yeah, we had around 70 businesses who employed around 500 staff. So.
Liz, can I start with you? Could you explain the situation we're in as an industry and why it's a problem?
So basically, I look at it as being a bit of a seesaw. And where in previous years and possibly previous decades, we've had an equal measure of people who were in the industry passing on their knowledge and leaving, and there was a stream of young people coming through. That's changed. We don't have that, if you like, father-son mentality within the industry anymore, which is partly contributed towards the situation that we're now in. But there's also a perception issue around the print trade with young people who, because it's a manufacturing trade, immediately have this perception that it's messy, it's dirty, it's not technology driven, it has all of these kind of issues, which we know within the industry is absolutely the polar opposite of the truth. But we need to convey that to the young people to try and encourage them to see print as the diverse career choice that it could be.
Do you agree, Linda? Is that kind of your experience?
With regards to most certainly the signage industry, and which obviously overlaps and was started over into the print industry as well, I think the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome is the unknown. People do not see working within the signage industry perhaps a career of choice. The career pathways, which are many and varied, are not obvious, and are not obvious, dare I say, outside of our industry, outside of our community. So certainly as custodians and people who have been fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work in such a diverse industries, we have a responsibility to be able to educate. So we need to be educating, we need to be communicating, we need to be making ourselves more visible so others on the outside can actually go, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on there? Is that something I'd like to be involved in? What would that look like for me? Is that something that I would like to explore further? So there are certainly a tremendous amount of opportunities for all, so for most certainly for younger people who are starting out on their careers and on what their future looks like, but also for people who are perhaps slightly older than school leaving age, who are perhaps looking for a change of career or looking to diversify with their own portfolio of skills and knowledges.
So, Matt, from your point of view, you're sort of the business end of placing people into companies. What are you finding? Where is the gap for your group?
I think there's a huge education piece to be done internally into the businesses as well. I think the mentality of it's always been done this way needs to change, and I think it is doing. But I think there's got to be a fine balance between, you can't have a team full of just rookies. You've got to have experienced people there to lead and mentor and guide that ship as well. But yeah, from a recruiter's perspective, I still think that 9 times out of 10, if I had somebody with maybe 3 years experience in an account management position and someone that wants to be an account manager, like fresh into it, they will always go for experience. And it's just trying to get that education to looking at that transferable skill set, maybe second jobbers in a different area to bring them in.
would somebody with, say, 3 years account management experience in a different industry still not be looked on particularly favourably in our industry, or do you find they will take that on?
I just think it's that industry knowledge of being able to hit the ground running and knowing that they could plug and play straight into their client base with that little bit of knowledge already gained would just, on given the seesaw analogy, it would just tip it in the experienced person's favour. Not in all circumstances, and wherever I can, because the pool of kind of qualified people out there is getting smaller and smaller anyway, and having good people are hard to find. I'm a huge advocate of transferring those skill sets from maybe like industries like signage or packaging or something, or a manufacturing facility, to broaden those businesses' horizons and open their eyes, and not always do it the way that it's always done and look for improvements, but it's not always that easy.
So, Craig, I mean, you started as a YTS, I know you mentioned that. Your experience of doing that's a long time ago, and you've worked for that company for how has that kind of developed to where we are now in terms of supporting young people straight in from school?
Well, I think I was fortunate enough that the training schemes of the time were the way that people got into a trade. And I think we've got to change the mindset at school level as much as anything else, because actually 50% of the population aren't, if I say academic, and I include myself in that demographic. The nice thing is about learning a trade is those skills do tend to be transferable into other sectors. But as an industry, we're not very good at showing a potential career path. So people think they come into a role, they're going to be standing at a bench for the rest of their life. So it is going to be a dirty job. I am going to be peeling vinyl. I am going to be cleaning a screen. I am going to. Some of this comes down to the educational process of the employer to show there isn't necessarily a glass ceiling, and we can move on. I was reasonably fortunate. My parents were, if I said my mother was a secretary, my father was a builder, it was kind of instilled in me that it's up to you to kind of make your own path. I don't necessarily see that in the younger generation at the moment. It's an assumption that there will be something for them, but they don't know what it is. So as an industry, we've got to find some way of educating, passing that information. So we can't abdicate responsibility, but parents and the youngsters can't either. And it's finding that medium to get them excited to follow through. And the YTS wasn't the right medium, by the way. It was.
It develops, is it?
Yes.
You mentioned assumption. I got to say, Elizabeth, kind of what you're doing. It's dangerous to make assumptions about what young people want and what they are like, because that's they're individuals as well. So, what's your thinking on this?
Well, to be fair, at the moment, there's actually a transition. So we're going back 5, maybe even 10 years, degrees. It was all about going to university. It was all about getting a degree. But what we've actually seen in transitioning over the last 2 or 3 years, and certainly since COVID, is a transition towards actual apprenticeships. But taking Craig's point, the one thing that we're not very good at doing is actually showing what that projection looks like. Kids want to know, mine's at 28, 25, I'm sorry, anybody younger than that, you're a kid. They want to know where they will be. They're not happy with the here and now. They want to know what that looks like in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. I've been in the industry for 35 years, and I still have people say to me, well, not really quite the right fit. And I've gone through that process myself very recently. So it's understanding and making sure that there are clearly defined areas, clearly defined pathways, and what the stepping stones are in those pathways, because that's what they want to know. If they're not going to university and they're not going down this sort of stricter education route, what are they going to have at the end of it? And also coming back to Matt's point regarding transferable skills, if they come into the print industry, they complete their apprenticeship, but actually decide not to stay in the industry, which would obviously be really, really awful, what have they got at the end of it that they can then take with them? And that's all for parents, because parents want that reassurance that their children are going to have something to take And that's something that we need, as a collective industry, need to get better at.
And it works the other way as well. So if someone leaving school wants to be a plumber, an electrician, a joiner, or something like that, those could be easily transferred into vinyl wrapping. Or, you know, like the way you're saying, not academic, but hands-on and physically doing a job. Then we need to, then print or wrapping or whatever should be an alternative to plumbing, joinery, and all that type of stuff. But I don't know how we get to that point.
Can I'll add one thing. I've been fortunate enough to be in the sign industry for a long period of time. I joined in 1984. I joined a franchise at its concept, so its launch. I was their first employee. The thing that franchising does is they show potential owners of businesses the map, the route that they can follow. It doesn't mean they have to stick to their path, but it's kind of, you can learn lessons from other trades and other sectors, and franchising might be one of those routes where we can show an individual, talk us about what your aspirations are, how you might get there. As business owners, we're bloody awful at it because we're worried that that person will leave. Well, that's actually our insecurity, not our employers' insecurity, showing them. And if they do go on to do something, it doesn't necessarily have to be competition to us, but it is about showing people what's possible. And that is purely our responsibility.
It's a bit like giving your kids not the best step in life, though, wouldn't it? And going, oh no, they might make a success of themselves.
And that's also one of the things that I think is quite unique to this industry. We, as an industry, and I may be quite unique. I've had one particularly bad experience in this industry in 35 years. But outside of that, generally speaking, I've found this industry to be very nurturing. And actually, they flex a lot to accommodate. So it's a very, very inclusive industry. My son has special needs, so I speak from a point of experience. It's very, very inclusive, and it wants people to do well. It wants you to do well. And if that means bending and flexing and maybe offering a slightly alternative route to an end goal, taking your point, Craig, then I think as an industry, that's something that we are really good at. And we tell no one that.
Okay, so I'd like to talk a bit more about apprenticeships, because looking at the sign industry, there's a lot more to it than making signs. Print is a part of it. Vehicle wrapping, we talked about design, carpentry, electronics. I don't understand how you can have one apprenticeship, have a sign. So, Linda, could you explain how the apprentice system works in the signage industry and how it could be improved, maybe?
It's not just very, very well.
So how it could be improved?
I mean, from your position, you're an endpoint assessor.
Absolutely. So I think
there is
there's
a
context that's required there then. So brace yourself, a bit of context for you all. So as we know, the signage industry is an unregulated industry, and what we're trying to do is to formulate frameworks and structures. And I think that's what we're talking about this morning as well, is that all of these ingredients, can I say that? All of these ingredients, all the resources are here, they are available, we work with them on a daily basis. What we're missing, and there is a level of accountability, like I said in my earlier comment, there is an accountability for us as individuals within the sign industry, but also as a collective as a sign industry, to recognise that it's not that these things do not exist. What is lacking is the structure to bring them all together. So what needs to happen now is almost, dare I be so bold to say, less talk and more action. So we need to be coming together to go, okay then, what are we going to do about that? We know what we need. We know that the resources are available. We now need to bring those together. So what we're looking for and what we need to be looking to achieve as a collective is to role model career paths, role model a structure of an employee's journey or a team member's journey from start to middle point to end. And apprenticeships obviously play a part in that, because at the start of the journey, the current apprenticeship that is available is a level 3 technical qualification, which ultimately in old money is an equivalent to sort of A levels. What we don't have at the moment is a level 2, which one would classify around the sort of GCSE part. So as a collective, so there's a trailblazing group that's in place, who was in place approximately some 36 plus months now, who work together to formulate the level 3. We're now going through a process of the level 3, and we're looking at potentially bringing in a level 2. So we are addressing what those entry steps look like for our industry. But that's only the first 2 rungs of the ladder. What is missing from that is the runs thereafter. Well, in an ideal world, we'll be able to come together and to build that step ladder. But ultimately, that's not going to happen. That's possibly not even going to happen in my lifetime, because obviously I'm quite young, and there's a long way to go with that. But what we need to be doing is that we need to be looking outside of our own industry, and we need to be looking into the other sectors to work in collaboration with, is to be inspired, to take initiatives, and to pinch ideas on occasion, to be brutally honest, and just go, okay, well, that's working in those trades. Why does it work here? So we talk about carpentry, we talk about building, electricians, and so on and so forth. Well, they're established, and they are go-to, and they are recognised career paths for young people, but also, like I said earlier on, for people who are looking to change career. But what are they doing that we are not? But they're not doing anything dramatically different, other than the fact that they've got their act together and they've pulled it in line. They have these formal structures, and they have these formal benchmarks that they can go out and to sort of say, look, be part of us. This is what it can look like for you. So going back to your original question, Jack, with regards to the apprenticeship, what does it look like at this moment in time? It looks like a single qualification that is the only qualification, aside from the level 2 and level 3, which I can talk about if you wish, but I'm sure you all want to get on and enjoy your day. So at the moment, the level 3 technical apprenticeship looks absolutely amazing, because it's the only option that we've got. Or it looks absolutely horrendous, because it's the only qualification that we've got. But it's a starting point, and what we should be doing is we should be working together to look at that and go, what works and what doesn't work? What do we need to be improving, and what can we actually dissect and take away from that to be able to build upon building an accreditation and a certification framework that works for our industry, that attracts young people into it, that recognises the skills and the talents that we already have within our industry, and actually we can draw outsiders from other sectors into our industry to actually raise the bar, champion who we are, and set the expectation and standards that we all know already exist.
Oh,
Sorry.
it was an answer.
Because it's the only one. What does it look like as a learner doing that? Is it just kind of a holistic overview of it, or are they going into a production environment where they will be a CNC machine operator for 6 weeks, and then they'll go into buying services? Do they get a full understanding of it, or what does it look like?
So as it's an apprenticeship, it is heavily driven to a certain extent by the employer as well, so what the employer can offer. So if you are, for argument's sake, a vehicle wrapping organisation, you won't be able to give your apprenticeship the opportunity to run a CNC. But ultimately, the idea behind it is that the apprentice has that holistic experience in all departments. So they may be brought on as a production apprentice, but throughout the actual course itself and through the portfolio that they collate during the course and the endpoint assessment, the idea behind it is that they continue with their everyday job, but get to experience all the different disciplines that are available, not just within their own organisation, but through the college course, get an insight into what the sign industry has to offer in its totality.
Okay, so how do young people get into that? They've got to make a decision to go and do that. So what are we doing to help make them aware that this is a thing they could do and is a great career to get into?
That is a very big question there, Jack. Would you like me to answer, or would somebody else like to speak in part?
As a recruiter, I want more of those people, and in 5 years' time.
I mean, we're doing quite a lot. So the people here, what used to be the guidance service, is now called the Careers and Enterprise Hubs. And actually, collectively, and I'm looking at Paul because he's got quite a bit of contact with them, but we're doing quite a lot of work with them so that we can attend events that they're holding. We can put them in contact with local printers, so that if they're doing something at a local level, the people that would be directly benefiting from that, taking Linda's point, which are the local employers, are actually represented there. And previously, that's something that's not been happening. I mean, one of the careers managers that we spoke to, and I'm saying Bath and Bristol, it's West Country, there was a P involved in it. That's as much as I can remember. However, 10 years he has been career advising young people, and not once in that 10 years had he recommended any young people to the print industry or even introduced the print industry to them. That's a disconnect, and it's a disconnect that needs to be addressed, because if we don't, the opportunities that we have to influence the decisions being made by these young children, young people and their parents, because parents, let's not forget, are very, very influential in the guidance routes that these young people will take. To actually get there, we have to have a presence. And if we don't, we haven't had a presence. And that disconnect is something that really is probably a big part of the aspirations that we've got as an initiative to try and address.
Can I just add, as a trade association, I will probably once a quarter, once a month, something along that line, be approached by a sign company who's saying, where do I find an apprentice? So they don't know who they have to approach to find. So do I have to find that person myself, or do you find it for me? And I think, again, that's the thing. We've got to be able to educate our members and the wider community.
It's that wider stakeholder setting, isn't it? It's the education providers. It's like I say, the colleges, schools, the universities to a certain extent. It's stepping outside of us as a collective and going, are you aware?
Well, you do have an opportunity, don't you, where the young people are in one place until they're a certain age. And I think we were listening to Ben Gregory the other day, and he got into sign by doing a sign project within the school.
Yes.
That's something that could be run. But sorry, now, what were you going to...
I was going to say, I think employers are missing a huge trick as well, because good people know good people. So if you've got a rare gem of an apprentice or a young person that's come into it, and we don't tell enough young people about how cool it is and how many different kind of verticals there are to do it, let's incentivize them to go and recommend and refer a friend. Let's try and get the channel to the young people through the young people as well.
But I think it's also a case of, I'm going to use that term again, educating, but it's educating employees as well. But what does an apprentice look like in my organisation? Because there's a fragmentation and disconnect about, do I want a young person in my organisation? What does that look like? How do I train an individual? How do I take care of a young person in my business whilst also trying to remain in business?
Let's do a bit. Back in the room. So I'm just going to get to the bottom a little bit. As you say, we talk about what we could do and what we should do. So we talk a little bit about what is happening, how we're moving in the right direction. Elizabeth, you're doing some very work with young people in print. You're doing very well. Can we sort of talk about what's happening and what direction we're going in?
So from our perspective, it is, to take Linda's, catchphrase of the morning really, it's about education on both sides of the fence. Some employers would actually like to take on a young person, but there is an element, not fear is too strong a word, but there's an apprehension about what that involves. Because, obviously, if they're 16, 17, then there's different health and safety issues and different things like that have to be taken into account. And those things cause apprehension and concern. But instead of talking about them, they kind of go, well, we'd like to, but, and then they don't progress that conversation. And I think what we as a collective need to do, and that's irrespective whether it's signage, commercial print, whatever sector or stream you want to work in, as a collective, we have to get better at talking about openly about the good stuff that's being done, because there's a lot of really great initiatives being done by organisations already, and that's signage, that's commercial print, that's all different aspects. They're doing good things, but nobody knows about it. And that means that we're missing out on actually benefiting from their experience, good or bad, because, you know, not everything goes according to plan. We all know that. How can you mitigate that? How did they mitigate that? How can you reduce the risk of that kind of thing happening? If you have an open day, for example, and you have young people coming in, what kind of activities have other people done? What kind of collaborations have been done? Whether that's with senior school, whether it's colleges, whether it's universities, there's a number of organisations doing things with universities where they have actually got sponsorship from major brands. And that's getting the young people excited at the opportunity to see it come to life, to see it in everyday practice and everyday existence. And I think those are the conversations that need to happen more widely.
But do we understand what it is that's stopping that from happening? Matt, this is probably the opera. You speak to recruiters or business owners. Are these companies maybe not the right size to think about those specific?
I don't think so, because if you do go back to being an electrician or a plumber, they're normally a one-man band or a one-person kind of company where they will take the risk and go through that way. So I don't think the size of the business is an issue. I just think the education piece isn't there, and there's not, other than what you've mentioned today. I don't think there's any other choice, and it's just not kind of put out there enough. Because if there's something there, then there's legs to take it further. So yeah.
You can say something.
I was just going to mention some of the work that myself and my colleagues at the BSGA have been doing to attempt to address said issue on a short to mid to long term sort of process as well. So just going to read a bit of a shopping list more than anything else, really. And if you'd like to know more, then please do visit Craig or I at stand to the left of the stage thereafter. But yes, as I briefly mentioned earlier on, there is a level 3 technical apprenticeship available alongside the current NVQ level 2 and level 3 that's runs on the peripheral. They are the only formal qualifications that are available. Transforming that overnight is an impossible task. So transforming from 3, 1 to multiple formal accreditations is not going to happen in the next 3 months. Let's say. However, what can we do that can positively impact? So, as an association, we ourselves. So, Jeff Bufton, one of our colleagues, he's the chairman of the Trailblazing Group that is working to address the current apprenticeship standards that are in place. Myself and my colleague David Derbyshire, we are standalone independent endpoint assessors for said apprenticeship. So we work under the guidance of SIAS, and we travel across this little island of ours, signing off and assessing the next generation of apprenticeships. What we're also doing as a collective, so as an association, is that we're bringing about our own training and education initiatives to be able to support smaller organisations and the larger organisations, should they require that, with how do you bring about training in your own sort of micro world? So be that on the job training, be that shadowing, be that one-off sessions on health and safety or business management, customer care, all of those basic arenas. So although it may not be a standalone portfolio that enables young people to stand on the stage with a mortarboard, what we are trying to do with the limited resources that we have at hand at the moment is to try to bring about a structure so individuals and or organisations can turn towards the association for guidance to support their own training and education initiatives to at least have a solid foundation with regards to that. One of the initiatives that we've brought about in the last 4 weeks is that we are working in collaboration with BPIF Training. They themselves offer a huge portfolio of training initiatives and have done and continue doing incredibly great work with regards to that. So we as an association have recognised that. They're outside of our own signage industry. However, they are part of the print industry. So we're looking to expand our community and actually celebrate and acknowledge that there are transferable skill bases and there are opportunities for two different sectors to come together to support the greater good. We're all more than aware that, like we said earlier on, printers and sign makers walk a very fine line together. So we should be working together. Today, having this discussion, sitting on this stage and sharing our thoughts and opinions is another example of how we are trying to support and educate and bring about the question. So it does raise it in our topics of conversation so it can go on and work can be done thereafter.
Brilliant. Elizabeth, now hear from the trade associations working together to make something happen. What's you talk about something specific young people in print are doing to build this?
Well, one of the things that we did at the end of last year on International Print Day was we actively encouraged print companies to open their doors to local secondary schools. So sort of that 13, 14, 15-year age group where they had small groups actually going in. Now, as a like everybody open your doors type scenario, with the number of printers in the country, we managed to get 77 who actually opened their doors and invited groups. We've had other groups that weren't able to facilitate it on that day. Konica Minolta, for example, did one at their facility a couple of weeks ago. Fuji are going to be doing one at their facility in a couple of weeks as well. So there's active engagement in trying to get those groups of people together, because that is ultimately what it's all about. It's about bringing them in. And the one thing that we've experienced when we've done that with the groups of, let's call them teenagers, they're not always that easy to engage with. Some do, some don't, some solve, some don't. However, I would say 90+% of them have left that building with a completely different perspective of what the print industry represents and what they've actually seen, because they've seen the fact that it's not, as you said, Craig, standing at a bench and just, doing it. They've seen the huge amount of automation. They've seen the huge amount of IT. They've seen the client service team and what they do.
And how clean it actually is as well.
Yeah, and
It's not mucky anymore, is it?
no, exactly. I mean, you walk into some of the digital spaces, and it's probably at times cleaner than my house with 2 dogs running through it. But it is that way because it has to be. But it's just the variety of roles that are available. They've seen finance. Who would have thought finance? You say print, people don't think of the finance department. They don't necessarily think of the IT department. And the fact that they're actually at the forefront of so much of the technology, not just within print. We talked about transferable skills, but there is a huge amount of IT involved in the industry, irrespective of the sector underneath the print umbrella. And again, those are the kinds of things that they kind of go, I didn't know, is the catchphrase of so many young people as they're walking out the door. And it just changes.
Is there a responsibility, sorry to interrupt, is there a responsibility for places like this to have maybe a student half an hour, and just get them to come around and have a look?
Well,
You used to do that.
but I was thinking, young people go into businesses, come here, they still need that pathway to the next step. How do I get into this? Is this what do I do next?
Well, one of the things that I was really surprised at, I was approached when I took on the role at the association by Walsall College to say, would you speak to our students? And my reaction was, well, why wouldn't I speak to your students? So now we do something on a quarterly basis where we'll all come on a Teams meeting. We'll talk through their syllabus that they're working on and how that relates to jobs that I've done in the past. So we will talk about accounts. We will talk about dealing with customers. We will talk about dealing with suppliers. Because in the environment they're currently in as a trainee, a lot of them are still standing at the bench or having a very limited focus on what the skill sets are. So you know, it's the fact that the colleges haven't reached out really. I made the assumption, and for me, I think as suppliers to the industry of youth and talent, we've all got to make the assumption that we are responsible for training those individuals. The colleges aren't going to train our staff to do the jobs we need them to do. It's a process that we're involved in.
And the other thing to add to that, I guess, kind of taking a couple of the points that have just been made, if they were to do a student attendance at an event like this, why couldn't they have, the same as they do at so many other places, a careers desk, where if you're interested, go and ask the question. And you, as an industry, as a collective, we have representatives there that can actually offer them that support, that can offer them guidance, that can give them some information and that type of thing. It doesn't have to be down to the individual exhibitors. There could be a careers desk that says, if you're interested, this is where you find out more information.
Maybe our trade associations could do something.
To do something, Craig. Maybe I'll just throw a little seed there.
I think
Recruiter could be stood there with a CV structure, showing you how to write the CV. Loads of stuff.
so if you were here on Sunday, there was an awful lot of young people, children, teenagers that were dragged along, looking very bored. So, you know, if you had something, because this is an exciting industry, have something specifically for them. I think careers desk is a great idea. And somebody from the business, like you, Matt, to host something like that.
Volunteer somebody else.
Yeah, no, it's definitely you. So now, just to finish, because we've got to the end of our time. So these guys are clearly, the ideas are there, there's things happening, but we need to communicate it well. From your point of view on the sort of more commercial side, how do you feel about what's happening and how to communicate with that with your customers, the people you're trying to place, all those sort of things?
And it's only a good thing. More people in the industry that are getting skilled up and tooled up and have that experience and the opportunity to do so. Yeah, it'll be a longer game for me, but in 4 or 5 years' time, then better it is. So yeah, commercially it makes sense, and I think it's needed anyway. So
I think you're
rather than
right.
blocking it.
I'm just going to throw very quickly, is anyone like a third question to the panel? Excellent. Make me move. Open. Move too quickly.
I suppose my question's really to Linda. Sorry. Myself and Donna are in a science design print business in West Wales. We really want to take on an apprentice or qualifications.
Yeah.
We can't get any access through Walsall College because we're based in Wales. Is there anything that we can access as we're based in Wales?
Do you want long or the short answer?
Should we do short here and then we'll have a long one after?
No, definitely step into my closet and we can have a chat later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, we are then time. We could probably talk about this topic all morning. Well, we did, but even longer. But thank you very much, all of you, for joining. And I look forward to doing this next year and seeing where we've moved to. So that's the important
Business.
Yeah, the careers days, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you.
We're on almost a minute.